welcome to Mooney Reads, and welcome to a book haul. I did a lot of book buying in January, largely thanks to thrift books, though not exclusively because I work at a bookstore and it's hard not to buy things. So I thought I would go through all the things that I bought because I'm excited about it. A fair amount of them are backlist, which is not unusual for me, but I'm super excited, especially because some of these are a little harder to get. Certainly not all of them, but I also just like having some of the older stuff that you might not find in the library or something like that. I actually looked at the years of all the stuff that I bought, and it's all between current day and the 70s. The biggest years were actually the 90s and the 2020s that we're in right now. So that's sort of the spread in that way. So I'm just going to get to it. I'll start with the book club books that I bought, starting with Everything for Everyone, An Oral History of the New York Commune, 2052 to 2072, which is a speculative fiction that's set after the collapse of capitalism, post-revolution. And it's set up like an oral history. Like the introduction reads just like you were reading a nonfiction book. I'm obsessed with the format currently. I'm not super far into it yet, despite the fact that it's the end of January and the discussion is on the 1st. Might not join in for the discussion, but I'm super glad that I got the chance to pick this up because it had been on my radar anyways. And that was for the Queer Your Year Book Club. The other one that I picked up, it's not exactly a book club, it's a book challenge, but it's close enough. Tomboyland essays. This is about someone growing up queer in the Midwest, and Bisexual Bookshelf on Instagram put together a book challenge, which the name escapes me, but the whole premise is to read books that are pertinent for the current shit show that is American politics. It's always been a shit show, but I guess in honor of the uniquely current dumpster fire. Yeah, this one looks like it's going to be interesting, and it's one that I'm kind of surprised I haven't gotten yet, so I'm glad I have a reason to. From there, I think I'm going to do fiction and then nonfiction, just because that makes sense because of how the books are sitting by me. So first, I have Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo by Ntozake Shange, who you will probably recognize as the author of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide, which I read a couple years ago, and it was really good. I read it and then watched it, and then read the chapter about like the making of it and the different iterations. I would highly recommend doing that. But I wanted to check out some of her novels. I do have a collected works of some variety, but this one looked cool, and this one is like the novel itself was published in 82, and it appears as though it's probably a run of around that time. I like that cover. After that, I have Disorientation by Elaine Shea Chow, and this is about a Chinese American, I think we're in America. If we're not in America, we're in Canada, person who's in grad school and is dealing with the racism of higher ed and also the general just hell that academia can be on multiple levels. I got this one because Sajid over at Books Are My Social Life was talking about it, and it's one that had kind of intrigued me before, but then hearing how deeply relatable it was for someone who's already in the middle of academic hell made it seem like one I needed to pick up as someone recovering from academic burnout pretty severely. From other blurbs and things that I've like seen, generally speaking, it kind of has the vibes or issues that Yellowface looks at, but it's a little like weirder in the way that weird lit fic is. So I don't know, it looks like a good one. And then I have Martyr, which I've heard just tons of people talk about, It's supposed to be super good. It's about an Iranian American man who is dealing with like the horrors of living. I think various things happen with his family, and he's dealing with substance abuse issues. Um, it seems like the Midwest is also featured in this book. No idea if we're going to see connections there at all. But regardless, I've heard nothing but super high praises of this one. Next, I have a 2025 release, The Proposal by Sonora Reyes, a really cute looking fake dating adult romance. And then Blackouts by Justin Torres, which again is supposed to be really good. Got National Book Award. I've heard that it's weird, gay, and at some point touches on the AIDS epidemic, which is one of the big reasons that I grabbed it, because I have this whole kind of reading trajectory around that. So it would be cool to see current day fiction that also talks about that. The actual like formatting storytelling component looks really interesting. There's a lot of photography in here, and even what looks like some blackout poetry or works like that. So that should be pretty cool. We have Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran, which is gay fiction from the late 70s. After Dolores by Sarah Schulman, which is lesbian literature from the late 80s. And yet another Sarah Schulman novel. I read 3 of hers last year, plus a nonfiction, and I've previously read more nonfiction from her, so we're just continuing down that route. The Body and Its Dangers by Ellen Barnett, which is a gay short story collection from the 90s. Then I have Kool-Aids by Rabih Alameddine, which deals with the AIDS epidemic as well as the Lebanese Civil War. This is one I've been thinking about getting for a while. It's also like intermittently available. Sometimes it's like a lot of money for a not very good condition book, so I'm glad that I found one. And this one was originally published in 98, but this is a newer edition of it. And then finally I have Such Times by Christopher Coe, which is a gay novel from 1993, so it heavily features the AIDS epidemic. This is also like an interesting format. I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of like skinny for a hardcover book. From there we can move on to nonfiction. I'll start with miscellaneous first. I have Playing Possum, How Animals Understand Death, which is, I think, Princeton University Press. And this is a release, if it wasn't this year, it must have been very late last year. But it's kind of philosophy looking at how we anthropomorphize animals' understanding and kind of looking more at something that might be a little bit closer to the truth. And then I have the step-by-step astrology workbook. I'm pretty into astrology, so I know the basics, but I really liked that this one seems to have like a lot of focuses through the houses, which I feel like you don't see in as many. Like it walks you through them specifically and not just kind of as a mention. Plus there are a lot of exercises to write about and think about that are kind of particular to you. So it looks very thoughtful and interesting, so I thought I'd try it out. Then, to no one's surprise, the rest of these are just gay, and then there are some that also pertain to the AIDS epidemic. So with this next one, we will dip right into the backlist. Unfortunately, there's no book cover for it, but this is Sappho Was a Right-On Woman, which is, the subtitle is A Liberated View of Lesbianism. This is from the 70s? Let's see, is it 72? Yes, I was right. 1972. This is one that I've seen multiple people reference in some of the books where lesbians are just like talking about their experiences, especially like around the 90s and stuff like that. And I saw that this was available. I think this is also like a weird one to get, which is why I have a copy without a book jacket. So I'm excited about that. Then also from the 70s, I have Out of the Closets, Voices of Gay Liberation. So this is like a memoir essay anthology um, that was published pretty soon after the Stonewall Uprising. I'm super stoked about that. Then from the 80s, we have Inventing Ourselves, Lesbian Life Stories, which is another anthology of like memoir essays. Then The Violet Quill Reader, The Emergence of Gay Writing After Stonewall. I think this is a mix of fiction and nonfiction, actually. So it probably should have been in the other stack because I think it's more fiction than nonfiction. But this is just a group of influential gay writers. And this one was published in 94. And from there, I have books pertaining to the AIDS epidemic. A lot of these are gay, but not all of them are necessarily by gay authors. Some of them are. Like Stage Struck by Sarah Schulman. The subtitle is Theater, AIDS, and the Marketing of Gay America. I'm super stoked about this. Like I said, I read a lot of Schulman last year. And her book, People in Trouble, which is one of the ones I read last year, was one of the kind of obvious influences of Rent. And she discusses that in here. So I'm interested to see kind of what she thought about that. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is that, I'm fine with annotations in my copies, but there are sections of this that are a little bit heavy, like heavily annotated, and just glancing at some of the annotations, I don't think this person might have 100% got it. They appear to have read it for a seminary class, which is fine and cool that they're reading it for a seminary class, but I also kind of wonder what like experience this person had with some of this just because of the questions in the margins. But who knows? Maybe it won't be aggravating. It can't be worse than the person who annotated my first copy of Nevada. Of course, I don't know exactly where the copies are now, but I have 2 copies of Nevada. One is the more recent print and one is the original cover. But whoever read it before me clearly did not like it, and that's irritating to read. I love buying used books and I love seeing what people thought about the books, unless they were annoying about it. And like when they don't like the book. But anyways, the next book I have is a memoir, Hospital Time by Amy Hoffman. And she's a lesbian activist who is also active around issues of AIDS. And this one was published in the late 90s. And then getting into more academic books on AIDS, we have The Boundaries of Blackness, AIDS and the Breakdown of Black Politics, which was published in the late 90s. And this is really cool. One of the issues that I was having when I was in the beginning of kind of putting together my HIV and AIDS TBR was that there weren't a ton of books specifically about the Black community in AIDS in America, but they were one of the groups most heavily impacted by it. So I was excited to A, find out about this book, and B, find a copy for less than $10 because buying this new is like $40. And the same price-wise can be said for Reframing Bodies, AIDS, Bearing Witness, and the Queer Moving Image by Roger Hollis. So this is looking at, I guess, film and AIDS. So this is really compelling to me, especially after reading The Gentrification of the Mind by Sarah Schulman. And she talks about lots of different arts, including film. And when I was reading that, I actually watched one of the films that she references. And it was deeply moving. So I'm really excited to read more about gay cinema and in general cinema around HIV and AIDS. And Reframing Bodies was published in 2009. Then we have Hold Tight Gently, Michael Callan, Essex Hemphill in the Battlefield of AIDS. So this focuses on those 2 figures specifically. I know Essex Hemphill was a poet. I'm not as familiar with Michael Callan, but I'm excited to get into this one. I feel like I say that about all of them, but it's true. This is some cool stuff. And this one is probably the newest of the backlist. It was published in 2014. So that is it for my January book haul. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if any of these look interesting to you, if you have recommendations, or if you just want to say hi, that's fine. But anyways, thank you for watching. Bye. Kitty. No, you don't want to be in the thumbnail. You might be in the thumbnail.